Imagine spending your entire life hustling. I mean, you were grinding day in and day out.
Right.
You build an empire. Maybe it's a massive corporate conglomerate. Maybe it's a political dynasty, or, maybe it's just your own personal mountain of wealth and status.
Just laying every single brick perfectly.
Exactly. You've spent decades doing this, missing sleep, sacrificing relationships, doing whatever it takes to construct this towering monument to your own success.
Yeah.
And then, at the very end of it all, the dust settles. You look at the final ledger of your life, and you realize that the actual objective value of everything you have built is mathematically zero.
Wow.
Not diminished, not depreciated, just zero.
It's the ultimate existential nightmare, really. I mean, we can handle the idea of a bad investment where we lose 30%, sure.
Oh yeah, we're a project that just didn't quite reach its potential. We can swallow that.
Exactly. But to discover that the fundamental currency you were dealing in has absolutely no purchasing power in reality, that the yield of a lifetime of intense labor is nothing.
Right.
That requires a total reevaluation of what we even consider value.
And that terrifying reevaluation is our mission today. Welcome to the Deep Dive. We are looking at a fascinating, highly analytical commentary on a specific section of the Quran, Surah Ibrahim, verses 13 through 23.
It's a heavy text.
It is, but I want to set a very clear ground rule before we even take another step. If you hear those words and immediately brace yourself for a traditional, literal, fire and brimstone religious sermon about the afterlife, I need you to completely wipe the slate clean.
Yeah, we are entirely bypassing that literal orthodox imagery today.
The source material we are diving into takes a radically different approach, doesn't it?
It totally does. The framework we are exploring treats these verses as a rigorous, almost sociological and physical breakdown of what happens to a society when its foundational principles ignore the objective laws of nature.
I love how they phrase it.
Yeah, the sources describe this as the entropy of a godless system. It is a profound exploration of societal physics and the mechanics of civilizational collapse.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the entropy of a godless system is a really dense phrase.
It is.
When we say godless in the context of this specific analytical commentary, I want to make sure we aren't just talking about, a society of atheists or people who sleep in on Sundays.
Oh, no, not at all. The source material is operating on a much broader structural definition here.
Okay, so what does that look like?
Well, in this specific framework, a godless system isn't strictly about personal theology or, modern secular philosophy. It refers to any system, so a government, an economy, a massive corporate structure, or even a personal ideology that is actively disconnected from the objective, universal truths of creation.
So it's about what the system is built on.
Exactly. We are talking about systems built on exploitation, on unchecked arrogance, on institutionalized falsehood, rather than on equity, justice, and the natural laws that govern human potential.
Right.
It's a system that basically defies the fundamental physics of how the universe operates.
So it's structural arrogance. It's the idea that a group of people can just invent their own rules for reality and force everyone else to play along.
Right. But reality always bats last.
Always. And that brings us to the visual that really anchors this entire concept, which is found in verse 18. The verse talks about people who deny these universal truths, who build these massive structures of exploitation.
The empire builders.
Yeah. And it compares their life's work, all those decades of hustling, to ashes on which the wind blows fiercely on a stormy day.
Ashes in a storm. I mean, think about the physical properties of ash.
It's completely weightless.
Right. It's the byproduct of consumption. A fire burns through the fuel, consumes all the usable energy, and leaves behind a gray, brittle residue that holds absolutely no structural integrity.
Not at all.
It cannot bear weight. It cannot be used to build anything new.
I was trying to visualize the sheer futility of this, and the analogy that kept playing in my head was, well, imagine spending 10 years obsessively building a skyscraper out of matchsticks.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You've glued every piece. The architecture is stunning. It's got an elevator shaft. It's towering into the sky.
Yep.
You put your blood, sweat, and tears into this thing.
Right.
But you decided to build this matchstick skyscraper on the open deck of a ship that is heading directly into a Category 5 hurricane.
The effort was massive, sure, but the foundation was inherently flawed.
Entirely.
The underlying premise of where and how you chose to build was entirely disconnected from the physical reality of the environment.
Because the hurricane doesn't care how hard you worked.
Not at all.
It doesn't care that you stayed up until 3 a.m. gluing matchsticks. The hurricane is the objective reality. The wind is just going to do what the wind does.
Yeah.
And your matchstick tower, because it possesses zero structural integrity relative to that reality, is instantly pulverized. That is what this source material means when it talks about the concept of zero value.
The value isn't based on your effort. It's based on your alignment with reality.
Exactly.
And, notice what happens to the ash in that storm. It doesn't just fall over in a neat, recoverable pile.
Right, you can't just sweep it up and try again.
No, the source commentary points out a crucial detail here. The ash scatters completely. It represents a total and absolute loss of control.
Wow.
The authors of the Urdu commentary actually explicitly use the English phrase out of control in their text to hammer this point home.
I noticed that. It's very deliberate.
The builders of that exploitative system don't even get to keep the ruins. The ashes blow away, leaving no trace. The erasure is absolute.
I want you, the listener, to really hold that image up against the modern world. Like, think about the systems we interact with every day. Think about a massive corporation that looks like an unstoppable juggernaut on paper.
Right. The stock is soaring. The PR machine is flawless.
But internally, the culture is deeply toxic.
Yeah.
They are financially exploiting their workforce. They are deceiving their customer base. They are ravaging the environment just to cut costs.
Yeah.
On the outside, to a casual observer, it looks like a fortress of success. But through the lens of this text, it is literally just a pile of ash waiting for the wind to pick up.
It's incredibly fragile.
Because it lacks grounding in ethical or natural reality.
And history is practically a graveyard of these ash piles.
Totally.
The commentary reflects on empires that seemed historically invincible. They possessed the most advanced weaponry, the most concentrated wealth, the most terrifying armies.
And yet
they evaporated. The source argues that you cannot indefinitely sustain a system that is fundamentally at odds with the constructive laws of the universe.
the storm always hits.
Always. When the inevitable storm hits, whether that's an economic depression, a global pandemic, a massive social uprising, the lack of internal ethical and structural integrity causes the entire facade to dissipate. The center cannot hold because, well, there was no center to begin with.
But I need to dig into the mechanics of this. Because it's one thing to use a poetic metaphor about wind and ash. That's a great visual.
Yeah.
But the text doesn't stop at poetry. It goes into the actual why. We've identified the symptom, the matchstick tower blowing away. But verses 19 and 20 transition into the underlying scientific cause.
This is where it gets really fascinating.
Yeah, this is where the commentary shifts from a sociological observation into something that sounds almost like astrophysics.
It really does. The source takes us into the literal physics of creation. Verse 19 states, Allah created the heavens and the earth with truth. But the specific Arabic word used for truth here is haq.
Hawk.
And the commentary does a phenomenal job of unpacking haq. It isn't merely a moral platitude or like a poetic sentiment. It is a declaration of objective physics.
It's not truth in the sense of a child saying, I promise I didn't steal a cookie.
No.
It's not about just honesty.
Right. It is about systemic reality. Haq means a logical, unwavering, objective set of constructive laws that govern the universe.
Okay.
It dictates that the universe is not a random, chaotic void. It possesses a purpose, an intelligent design, and a highly specific, immutable operating code.
Like gravity.
Exactly. Gravity is a physical manifestation of haq. The laws of thermodynamics are haq. The mathematical constants of the cosmos are haq. The universe runs on these absolute, non-negotiable parameters.
So if the entire universe is running on this operating system of Haq, this network of constructive, objective laws, what happens when a group of humans decide to build a society based on falsehood?
Right.
And again, by falsehood, the text means systemic oppression, exploitation, tyranny, and arrogance.
Well, within this analytical framework, an exploitative society is literally a bug in the universal code.
A bug.
Yeah, it is a fundamental anomaly. It clashes with the baseline programming of existence because the universe is intrinsically designed to be constructive, right? To nurture growth, complexity, and potential.
And oppression is the opposite of that.
Oppression, by definition, is destructive. It suppresses potential to benefit a tiny few. Therefore, the universe naturally and systematically works to reject and edit out that anomaly.
A universal edit. It's like the universe has an immune system, and an oppressive society is a toxic virus. Eventually, the white blood cells of reality show up to neutralize the threat.
That's a great way to put it.
But let me stop you right there.
Yeah.
Because if I look at a history book, that immune system seems incredibly slow,
Oh, sure.
right? Corrupt empires and brutal regimes can last for a shockingly long time. The Roman Empire was built on conquest and slavery, and it lasted centuries.
Yeah, or feudal dynasties.
Exactly. Dynasties that span generations, just crushing human potential the entire time. So, if the universe actively edits out falsehood, why does it take 200 years? Why doesn't the matchstick tower get blown down the moment the first oppressive brick is laid?
It's a critical observation. And the source addresses this directly through a concept called Khalqin Jadid, which translates to new creation.
New creation, okay.
The answer lies in the scale of the timeline. The universe operates on an evolutionary cosmic timeline, not a human lifespan.
Right, the universe isn't in a rush.
Exactly. The text links this explicitly to the law of succession of nations and a sort of sociological survival of the fittest. It is not an instant magical lightning bolt from the sky. It is a gradual mathematical and thermodynamic collapse.
Okay, walk me through the thermodynamics of a societal collapse. Like, how does that actually work in practice?
Well, think about the sheer amount of energy required to maintain a lie.
Okay.
A society aligned with HAC, with justice, equity, and natural growth, it generates its own sustainable energy. People want to contribute.
Because it works for them.
Right. But a system built on falsehood and tyranny is constantly fighting the natural current. To maintain an unnatural dominance, the oppressive regime has to expend colossal amounts of energy.
Oh, I see.
They have to fund secret police, they have to build massive propaganda machines, they have to censor information.
Constantly monitor everybody.
Exactly. They have to constantly violently suppress their own citizens.
It's institutional friction.
Unbelievable amounts of friction. They are bleeding energy just to maintain the status quo. If an old system is entirely disconnected from HAC, it loses its ability to adapt. It loses its vitality.
Right.
The text explains that the universe is constantly in a state of bringing forth new creation, Khalqin Jadid. The universe is moving forward. The oppressive society is burning all its fuel, just trying to stand still.
Just to not fall over.
Yeah. Eventually, it fails the evolutionary test. The internal friction becomes too great. External pressures mount, and the sheer unsustainability of the lie causes the structure to buckle. It is recycled to make way for a new system.
That makes perfect sense. Like, you can build a massive concrete dam to stop a river. That dam might hold for 50 years. To a human being standing on it, it looks permanent and invincible.
50 years is a lifetime.
But the water is always pushing. The water represents the natural law of the HAC. And if that dam wasn't built with release valves, if it wasn't built to work with the environment, the pressure builds.
The friction.
Yeah. A microscopic crack forms. Then another. And eventually, the entire structure gives way in a catastrophic failure, and the river reclaims its natural path. The universe edits out the artificial blockage.
And that concept of the blockage, the artificial restriction of flow, is the perfect bridge into the next layer of the commentary.
Oh, yes.
Because while it is intellectually satisfying to look at this from a macro-historical perspective, you know, watching empires rise and fall like waves over centuries, the text doesn't let us stay detached.
No, it makes it very personal.
It zooms right into the micro level. It forces us to ask, what is the psychological and physical experience of living inside one of these collapsing anomalous systems while the dam is cracking?
Which brings us to what I found to be the most mind-bending, paradigm-shifting part of this entire deep dive. The linguistic breakdown of verses 15 through 17.
It's incredible.
The source text takes these words that have been translated in very simple, almost cartoonish ways for centuries and strips them down to their classical Arabic roots.
Yeah.
Let's start with the word Jabr. In most standard, off-the-shelf translations, Jabr is simply translated as tyrant or oppressor. You know, you picture a guy with a crown yelling at peasants.
Right, but the historical linguistic reality of the word is so much more specific and, honestly, terrifying.
Yeah, tell us about that.
So the commentary reveals that historically, in classical Arabic usage, the word Jabr was actually the specific term for a bone setter.
Like an ancient orthopedic surgeon.
Yes. When someone broke an arm or a leg, the Jabr would take two rigid, immovable pieces of wood splints and bind them incredibly tightly around the broken limb.
Okay.
The goal was to force the bone into a state of absolute rest, immobilizing it completely. The process of applying this strict, rigid binding was called Jabr, which means compulsion or forcing something into a fixed state.
Right. Now, in the context of a broken bone, that rigid splint is a medical necessity.
Exactly.
It is a profound mercy that allows the bone to knit back together.
Because you absolutely need the bone to stay still or it heals crooked.
Right. But the genius of the commentary is how it flips that image. It asks us to imagine taking that same rigid, tightly bound wooden splint and applying it to the limbs of a perfectly healthy, growing child.
Oh, man.
It immediately ceases to be a medical intervention and becomes an instrument of absolute torture.
Completely.
The child's bone is trying to lengthen naturally, the muscles are trying to develop, but they are trapped inside this unyielding wooden cage. It would completely stunt their physical development.
And the source actually draws a direct parallel to the historical practice of foot binding in China to illustrate this horrific distortion.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
They would tightly bind the feet of young girls, physically breaking and restricting the natural growth of the bones to create a permanent, agonizing deformity, all to enforce a completely arbitrary societal standard of control.
That's horrifying.
It is. And that is the exact metaphor the tale uses for what a tyrant does to a civilization. The tyrant, the societal Jabr, applies a rigid mental and intellectual splint to the entire population.
They put a steel cap on human intellect.
Exactly. They mandate rigid, absolute conformity. You are not allowed to question the narrative. You are not allowed to innovate outside of the approved boundaries.
You just have to stay in the box.
Right. You cannot grow politically, socially, or intellectually beyond the exact parameters the tyrant has set. The Jabr binds the collective mind of the society the same way the orthopedic surgeon binds the broken limb, but they do it to a healthy population.
Actively preventing all natural evolution and progress.
Yes.
That is such a visceral, sickening metaphor,
Mm-hmm.
the mental splint. It perfectly explains why totalitarian regimes throughout all of recorded history follow the exact same playbook.
Always.
Who do they attack first?
Every-
They go after the intellectuals, the philosophers, the artists, the journalists, the university professors.
Every time.
Why? Because those people represent the growth spurts the tyrant is trying to suppress.
Yeah.
They are the society trying to stretch its legs against the wood.
That's exactly it. They are fighting the splint.
And if you live your whole life confined in that splint, your society becomes profoundly deformed, which naturally leads into the text's redefinition of the ultimate consequence of this deformity, the concept of Jahannam, or hell.
Right. And this is where the commentary executes a massive paradigm shift. In conventional religious discourse, Jahannam is almost exclusively depicted as a post-mortem, literal pit of physical fire.
A place you go after you die to burn.
Exactly. But this analytical framework reframes it entirely. It places Jahannam firmly within the context of the present world and the inevitable result of societal entropy.
The source defines Jahannam not as a fiery pit, but as a state of total frustration.
Just think about the psychological reality of living inside that mental splint. If your entire society is bound, if the economy is rigged, if innovation is punished, if you are fundamentally unable to express your human potential.
It's suffocating.
The resulting atmosphere isn't a literal fire. It is a suffocating, paralyzing, omnipresent frustration. Every effort you make to improve your life leads to a dead end.
Every attempt to progress hits that steel cap.
You are trapped in a maze where every door is locked.
And the text gives us a physical metaphor to perfectly capture that feeling of frustration, right? The imagery in verse 16 of drinking mine sadid.
Yes.
Usually you see this translated as the inhabitants of hell being forced to drink boiling, putrid water, or sometimes it's translated as pus, which again is a horrific image.
Truly horrific.
But the source unpacks the linguistic root of the word sadid.
Yeah, the root of sadid refers to a barrier, a deep obstruction, or something that is hopelessly clogged. Think of industrial plumbing that is backed up.
Oh, well.
The imagery being presented is trying to consume water that is so thick with decay, rust, and obstruction that it literally chokes you.
So let's translate that into modern daily life to really feel what that means.
Okay.
We've all experienced microdoses of this total frustration. Imagine trying to cancel a gym membership.
Oh my God, the worst.
Or trying to fix a billing error with a massive telecommunications company, or navigating a Kafka-esque DMV system. You call a number, you get an automated machine that sends you to another machine that disconnects you.
Yeah.
You fill out a form. The form is rejected because you needed a blue pen,
Yeah.
but they only provide black pens.
You're expending all this energy, but nothing is moving.
Exactly. The plumbing of the bureaucracy is totally clogged. Now, take that infuriating, pull-your-hair-out feeling of a broken DMV and scale it up to encompass your entire civilization.
It's a nightmare. And the source text describes the physical panic of this brilliantly. You take a mouthful of the sadid, this clogged, putrid, societal water. You try to swallow it, but your throat violently rejects it. It won't go down.
Yeah.
But you also cannot spit it out because you are dependent on it. So it just sits there, stuck in your throat, choking you, burning you.
Wow.
You are caught in this agonizing, endless limbo between swallowing and expelling. It is the physical manifestation of total, inescapable frustration.
And the commentary grounds this in a very sharp, very bleak, real-world example. It connects this choking water to nations that have completely lost their internal sovereignty. Nations that, because of their internal corruption and the mental splints placed on their people by their own tyrants, can no longer sustain their own existence.
Basically a failed state. They cannot produce their own food. They cannot manufacture their own goods. They cannot manage a functional economy.
So what is their only recourse?
They become entirely degradingly reliant on foreign aid. They survive on the geopolitical scraps of other nations.
Yeah.
The source paints this devastating picture of a nation standing on the shoreline, waiting for the ocean to wash up dead, rotting wood and toxic foam, the useless cast-offs from functioning ecosystems, and desperately trying to survive on that garbage.
And that foreign aid, those scraps with 1,000 strings attached, that is the sadid. It's the putrid, clogged water.
Exactly. They are forced to consume it to survive, but the consumption is deeply humiliating. It comes with geopolitical conditions that further strangle whatever tiny shred of independence they have left.
Right.
They try to swallow it, but it burns their national pride and erodes their sovereignty. They want to spit it out, but they will literally starve if they do, so they just choke on it. The society exists in a state of utter, perpetual stagnation.
And the verse adds this haunting line about the person drinking this water. Death comes to him from everywhere, but he does not die.
It is a living death.
You are surrounded by the decay of your society. The infrastructure is crumbling. The currency is worthless. The loss of human dignity is everywhere. Death is staring at you from all four corners of the compass.
Yeah.
But the system just limps along. It doesn't even grant you the mercy of putting you out of your misery. You don't get the release of an actual final collapse. You just exist in perpetual, choking frustration.
It is the ultimate description of systemic failure. The plumbing of the society is entirely clogged with corruption, incompetence, and tyranny. Nothing flows. Nothing is clean.
Everyone is just surviving on the putrid backup of a broken system.
And this brings up a crucial, unavoidable psychological dynamic. When the societal plumbing is this clogged, when everyone is choking on the sadid, human nature kicks in.
Right. When everything is falling apart and you can't breathe, you start looking for someone to blame.
Of course you do.
Someone has to be at fault for this nightmare, which moves us perfectly into the town, verses 21 and 22. The blame game and the absolute necessity of intellectual autonomy.
This section stages a massive dramatic confrontation that we see play out every time a large system collapses, whether it's a nation-state failing, a massive Wall Street bank collapsing, or even a cult being exposed. It examines the brutal interaction between the followers and the leaders in the aftermath of the crash.
Verse 21 sets the scene. It describes the weak, the masses, the everyday working people turning to the arrogant, the leaders, the Jabr who put the splint on them in the first place.
Right.
And the masses say, hey, we were your followers. We did exactly what you said. We marched in your parades. We bought your overvalued stock. We obeyed your unjust laws. We looked the other way when you asked us to.
We did our part.
Exactly. Now the system is collapsing. The ashes are blowing away in the storm. Can you save us?
Yeah.
Can you avert even a fraction of this disaster?
And the leader's response is incredibly telling and honestly incredibly cold. They strip away all the propaganda and essentially say, if the universe had given us a way out, we would have guided you to it.
Oh, wow.
But the physics of the collapse are absolute. We are all doomed together. It makes no difference now whether we panic and scream or endure it patiently. There is no escape from the consequences of the math.
Okay, wait. I'm going to aggressively push back on this.
Yeah.
Because, well, this specific narrative always bothers me when we talk about systemic collapse.
Go for it.
It feels incredibly harsh to hold the everyday followers equally accountable to the architects of the tyranny. I mean, the masses are manipulated. They are lied to from birth by state media.
Sure.
They are subjected to sophisticated, multi-billion-dollar propaganda campaigns. In many totalitarian regimes, they are literally forced into compliance at gunpoint.
That's true.
If you are born into a society wearing a mental splint, you don't even know you're wearing one. How can you possibly blame someone for not utilizing an intellect they were never allowed to develop? The tyrant built the matchstick tower. The followers were just trapped inside it.
Yeah, I mean, that is the ultimate defense, isn't it? It is the core of the Nuremberg defense.
Yeah.
I was just following orders. I didn't know any better. I was forced.
Right.
But the source text uses this Dean-centric worldview, meaning a divinely aligned, objective framework of reality, to vigorously, categorically reject that defense.
Really?
Yes. In this worldview, surrendering your intellect is not an excuse. It is considered a profound, fundamental crime.
A crime against what? Against themselves.
A crime against their own inherent human dignity and a crime against the truth of their creation.
Okay, unpack that for me.
The commentary argues something very radical here. The tyrant, the Jabr, does not actually possess magical powers. A dictator or a corrupt CEO only has power because the masses give it to them through their compliance.
Because they're obedient.
Right. By accepting the mental splint, by refusing to engage their own critical thinking, by prioritizing their immediate comfort, salary, or safety over the objective truth, the followers become the physical bricks of the false system. They are complicit.
So even if the tyrant is standing on a balcony screaming into a microphone, it's the silence and obedience of the crowd below that actually gives those words physical power in the real world.
Exactly. The source implies that intellectual autonomy, the responsibility to use your own mind, to critically evaluate information, to distinguish between right and wrong, is an absolute non-transferable requirement of being human.
Non-transferable. I like that.
You cannot outsource your moral compass to a leader, a politician, or a corporation and then claim innocence when the ship hits the iceberg.
Yeah.
You were on the ship, you saw the ice, you felt the chill in the air, but you chose to keep rowing because the captain in the fancy hat told you to.
That is a brutally heavy responsibility. You are not allowed to just be a passenger in your own life.
No, you're not.
And this concept of radical accountability culminates in what I absolutely love about this text, the ultimate mic drop moment from verse 22. This is the final nail in the coffin for the blame game, and it comes from the ultimate historical scapegoat, Satan.
Yeah, the dialogue attributed to Satan in this commentary is a masterpiece of psychological accountability. It turns the entire concept of temptation on its head.
Let me set the stage for you, the listener, because this is cinematic. The system has completely collapsed. Everyone is trapped in the state of total frustration.
Right.
The followers are screaming at the leaders are shrugging their shoulders, everyone is desperately pointing fingers at everyone else. And then Satan, the conceptual embodiment of evil, the ultimate boogeyman, stands up to address the crowd.
And you would expect him to cackle.
Yeah, you would expect him to gloat about how he cleverly tricked everyone into hell, but instead, he acts like a defense attorney delivering a cold, devastating legal summation.
Satan completely strips away the human delusion of victimhood. According to the text, he says, God made you a true promise, and I made you a promise, and I broke it.
He admits he was lying.
Right. But then comes the crucial, devastating legal defense. He says, I had no actual power over you. I had no authority to force you to do anything.
I merely invited you, and you RSVP'd yes. That is exactly how that reads.
It's the perfect analogy. Satan says, I only called you, and you responded to me, therefore do not blame me, blame yourselves.
Do not blame me, blame yourselves. That is a chilling reality check.
It completely dismantles the classic, the devil made me do its defense. It removes every single excuse a human being could possibly conjure up.
Yeah.
It emphatically rejects the concept of externalized blame. And by extension, it rejects any theological or philosophical concept of inherited sin, original sin, or forced destiny that strips human beings of their agency.
Because that would mean you aren't responsible.
Exactly. The source material is adamant on this point. Humans possess inherent, undeniable free will. No entity, not a corrupt politician, not a toxic boss, not a manipulative algorithm, not even the literal embodiment of evil can force you to abandon your intellect unless you actively consent to hand it over.
It's a terrifying warning, but hidden inside it is the ultimate empowering message. You are in the driver's seat.
You really are.
If you drove your car into a ditch because the guy in the passenger seat suggested it would be a fun shortcut, you were the one holding the steering wheel. Your foot was on the gas.
Yeah.
If you allow a tyrant to put a mental splint on you, you are complicit in your own stagnation.
Yeah.
You bought the ticket to the state of total frustration.
And reaching that realization is the necessary turning point in the entire text. Once you accept that your intellect is your own responsibility and that you cannot blame external forces for participating in a system built on falsehood, you are finally ready to understand what a correct system actually looks like.
You have to clear the rubble before you can build.
Yes.
Because we have spent a solid 45 minutes talking about entropy, thermodynamics, stagnation, choking on putrid plumbing, and ashes blowing away in storms. It is incredibly heavy.
It's very bleak.
But the source text isn't just a bleak autopsy report on how things break. It's also a detailed blueprint for how things are supposed to thrive. So what is the alternative? How does a society properly align with the physics of creation?
This brings us to the imagery of verse 23. This verse acts as the complete photographic negative of everything we've discussed so far.
Okay, what's the image?
Instead of ashes scattering in the wind, it talks about those who believe and do constructive deeds being admitted into gardens beneath which rivers flow.
Now remember our primary mission from the start of this deep dive. We are not talking about a literal post-mortem botanical garden with nice landscaping.
Right.
We're maintaining our sociological and physical lens. And the source text uses a brilliant practical analogy here to explain what it means to believe and do constructive deeds in a societal context. It pivots to a discussion about raw human potential.
The source introduces the analogy of a matchbox or a piece of flint. It suggests that every single human being is born with immense latent potential, like a hidden spark locked inside a stone.
If you just look at a piece of flint sitting on the ground, it looks like a cold, dead, useless rock. You would have no idea there was literal fire trapped inside it.
But if you understand the physics of the stone, and you provide the right conditions, the right friction, the right gangle, the right nurturing environment, that spark is released.
Catches fire.
It provides light in the darkness. It provides warmth. It can power an engine. The Arabic word the source uses for this nurturing, actualizing process is Falah.
Falah.
It's often broadly translated as success, but its agricultural root means to cleave the earth, to plant a seed, to actively nurture it so it grows and bears fruit. It's about actualizing hidden potential through deliberate, constructive effort.
Nurturing the spark so it becomes a flame.
But the text immediately contrasts this with the opposite action, using the word Dassaha. This means to bury something under a heavy, suffocating clod of dirt. If you take that seed of potential, or that spark, and you bury it under the dirt of oppressive laws, under the mental splints of a tyrant, under systemic corruption, it dies. The potential is suffocated by the environment.
So the tyrannical system, the Jabr, actively buries the potential. That's Dassaha.
Yes.
The truth-aligned system actively nurtures the potential. That's Falah. And that brings us back to the flowing rivers in verse 23. How do rivers fit into this?
Well, think about the contrast in the physics of the water. In the corrupted system, the society was choking on ma'in sadid, stagnant, clogged, putrid water backed up in broken plumbing.
A closed loop of decay.
Exactly. But in the thriving ecosystem that is aligned with HAC, the gardens of society are nourished by naturally flowing rivers.
Flowing water is life. It's constant movement. It's aeration. It cleanses itself as it moves.
Right. Flowing water represents a dynamic, adaptable society. A society where ideas flow freely without censorship, where economic resources circulate equitably rather than being hoarded by a tyrant.
Yeah, where innovation is encouraged, not splinted.
It perfectly opposes the state of total frustration. In a flowing system, when you hit a barrier, the water doesn't just sit there and rot. It finds a way around it. It adapts. It evolves.
It's the difference between being trapped in a toxic, mosquito-infested swamp and standing next to a powerful, roaring mountain stream.
Beautifully said.
And the verse adds one final, incredibly beautiful detail to this thriving ecosystem. It says that the inhabitants of this flowing system are greeted with the word salam.
Right.
Now, anyone even vaguely familiar with the word knows it's used as a standard greeting, like saying hello or peace. But the source text digs into the deeper structural architecture of the word salam.
The linguistic root of salam signifies far more than just the temporary absence of conflict. It's not just peace and quiet because nobody is currently shooting at each other.
Okay, so what does it signify?
Salam signifies absolute security, structural soundness, flawlessness, and the ultimate completion or perfection of a state of being.
The perfection of human potential.
Yes. When a society is built firmly on the objective laws of nature on Hak, when it violently rejects the mental splint of the tyrant,
Right.
when the citizens take absolute intellectual responsibility for their own choices, and when the system is designed to nurture the hidden spark inside every individual, the resulting state is salam.
It is a state where everyone's potential is securely, safely actualized.
It is the exact mathematical opposite of the living death of Jahannam. In Jahannam, you are choking on frustration and surrounded by decay.
Yeah.
In the state of salam, you are secure, you are thriving, and you are constantly growing alongside the flowing rivers of a functional, truth-aligned ecosystem.
Okay, let's pull all of these massive concepts together, because we have covered an immense amount of intellectual ground today.
We really have.
We started with this terrifying existential image of spending your whole life building a matchstick skyscraper in a hurricane, the mathematical zero value of the ashes scattering in the storm.
And we saw how that zero value occurs because the universe operates on an objective, thermodynamic set of physics, the hack, which naturally, inevitably edits out the anomaly of falsehood and oppression through the process of new creation.
We looked at the sheer suffocating agony of living inside one of those anomalous systems before it collapses. The tyrant acting as a primitive bone setter.
Right, placing a rigid wooden splint on the free thought of a healthy society, stunting its growth until the entire nation is choking on the putrid, clogged plumbing of their own stagnation.
We stripped away the comforting illusions and excuses. We saw that followers cannot blame leaders and humans cannot blame Satan.
The surrender of the intellect is a conscious choice, and reclaiming your intellectual autonomy is the only way out of the blame game.
And finally, we saw the alternative. The spark of potential nurtured into a roaring flame. The stagnant, putrid swamp replaced by flowing, dynamic rivers. The ultimate destination of Salam security, structural completion, and thriving human potential.
Exactly.
So, what does this all mean for you? You, the person listening to this deep dive right now, whether you are driving in your car, sitting at your desk pretending to work, or going for a walk.
I think the most provocative thought to leave you with is to look closely at the microsystems you participate in every single day.
Okay.
Examine your workplace culture. Look at your community organizations. Analyze your political affiliations. Even scrutinize your own personal habits and the way you govern your own household. Look at the foundation of those systems.
Right. Are they built on a demand for rigid conformity? Do they rely on a fear of questioning authority?
Do they survive by exploiting the people at the bottom? If so, no matter how profitable, popular, or stable they look today, they are essentially a Jenga tower being built on a slanted table in an earthquake zone.
Wow.
The physics of the universe dictate that they will eventually collapse into ash.
You have to ask yourself the hard questions. Are you willingly accepting a mental splint just to keep the peace at the office? Are you choking on the putrid water of a toxic environment because it feels easier than challenging the broken plumbing?
Or, conversely, are you actively planting seeds by a flowing river? Are you participating in and helping to build systems that demand intellectual honesty?
Systems that nurture the hidden spark in people.
Right, systems that align with the constructive, equitable laws of the universe. The choice, as the text makes absolutely terrifyingly clear, is entirely yours.
No one else can make it for you.
And no one else can take the blame if you choose poorly.
That is a massive amount to chew on. And it actually sets us up perfectly for where this text goes next.
It does.
Now that we understand the physics of creation and the entropy of a godless system, the obvious practical question is, how do we definitively spot a bad system before it completely collapses on top of us and turns us to ash?
Because you want to know before the storm hits?
Exactly. In the next set of verses 24 through 37, the text moves from physics to biology. It introduces the parable of the trees, using the mechanics of root system soil quality and fruit-bearing branches to clearly visually define the difference between a productive ideology and a poisonous one.
It's a fascinating shift.
How do you know if the seed you are planting is going to bear fruit or poison the well? And that is something for you to start thinking about right now.